A Black executive perspective now presents Need to Know with the award-winning hyphenated Dr. Nsenga Burton. Dr. Burton, what do we need to know?
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Nsenga Burton, and welcome to Need to Know with Nsenga. Today, I am talking about this idea of workplace culture. And in the last episode, I talked about boundaries at work, and I think it really is important. One of the things I love about Gen Z and millennials is that they are willing to say, hey, listen, not today, Linda. I have been working overtime. I was supposed to be doing A, B, C, D, and E. You have me doing Z, F, G, K. I really need to get some clarity on where it is, where we are. I need some clarity on my job description. No, I cannot come in on weekends because I've been in every other weekend. I need some time to myself. So those are some of the things that we really actually like, or people like me who manage others in certain capacities. I do appreciate. I'm also someone who is a proponent of self-care and of setting and establishing boundaries for your self health and worth and identity outside of the workplace. So not everybody loves that, but I do. But there is a video that's going around. And it is an interesting video. It's a viral video. And I'm not sure if it's really if it's an enactment or if it's real. Some people think it's real. Some people think it's an enactment. But there's a young lady who looks to be about 20, early 20s or what have you, who's getting fired from her job, and she records it. And one of the things that she gets fired for is because she was chronically late to work. And chronically late meaning, I think in one instance she said, I was only 21 minutes late. And then she didn't show up to work and didn't call. And the supervisor was like, yeah, you didn't call. And this is after we had already sat down. We've talked to you multiple times. I just talked to you last Friday about this type of behavior. And then you do a no-show. And the person said, well, it's my birthday. So I say all of that to say, while we appreciate you having your personal boundaries and you choosing self-help, choosing self-care in order to maintain your health and your personal happiness, those are all important things. There is still such a thing as a work ethic and a necessity to show up and to be present while you are at work. There's also such a thing as professional communication, right? And professional communication meaning when someone calls you into an office and gives you a list of things you need to work on, that's them initiating steps. It means that they have been documenting what you haven't been doing to their satisfaction. And they're now making you aware of not only what you haven't been doing, but also setting those expectations in place, and will be measuring you against those expectations. And so we love, when I say we, I'm not talking about me because I'm Gen X, so I'm a little bit older. We were abused in the workplace and continue to be abused in the workplace. That's kind of our culture. So we're working on getting ourselves together, saying, no, I've worked 80 hours a week for 15 years. I haven't had any weekends or breaks. I'm taking one. That's a big deal for us. But we also have to be clear that even though there's a shift in culture and there's an understanding by HR and other people who are leaders and managers, that there needs to be clear lines and that people do have the right to have personal autonomy and to be able to have access to their personal lives outside of the workplace. You still do have to understand that there are basic things you have to do, and coming to work is on time. Coming to work on time is one of them, right? So chronic tardiness or lateness is something you can get fired for. Your birthday. Now, as Black and brown people, we celebrate our birthdays. It's important. It's culturally important, but it's also because many of us are not supposed to be here based on the history of the world in which we live. So every time we get a year, especially some of us who've grown up in some precarious situations, some tough neighborhoods, you're very aware of your relatives who are no longer with us for lots of different reasons, relatives you can't celebrate with for lots of different reasons. We celebrate, we party. It's our birthday. Some people make fun of, oh, we're going to celebrate for the whole month. I'm turning 21 days of Nsenga, all of the things. But ultimately, if you have a job, you actually have to come to work. Even on your birthday, you should be coming to work. You got to plan to celebrate your birthday either earlier or later, or like plan in advance and take the day off. And make sure you don't take so much time off that you don't have time to take one day off when your birthday comes around. And I say all of that to say that I think this generation just needs to be mindful. And I used to say this in my classroom too, that yeah, you're a new generation. You have wonderful ideas. You have different ways of doing things, thinking about things, and things that are important to you. And you are very clear and okay with communicating that to us. You also have to be clear and okay for people in my generation, many of whom are in leadership positions now, in this point of our careers. You also have to be clear that you have to understand who we are, what our backgrounds are, and what our expectations are. And we actually do clearly articulate them and document everything, because we had to do that when we were coming up. We didn't have all this electronic stuff. Even me, I had a telephone with a rotary part to it, but we didn't have all this electronics. So we had to sign everything. We had to write things. We had to write down the notes in the meeting. You had to keep track of them. You had to make photocopies. You had to share them. Okay, so that's kind of our practice. So we do that in our sleep. So please note, if you're engaging with anybody who looks like me in my age group, middle age and above, I'm 51, they are taking notes. They are paying attention, and they are grading you against the criteria against which your job is either in play or in jeopardy. So don't lose your job over a birthday. Don't lose your job because you want to push the boundaries. I talk about this with my daughter, like, you got to have a boundary. You can't push it as far as you can. You had A, B, C, D, and E today. That's it. Don't keep pushing all the time, especially over frivolous things, when you got mostly what you wanted. You get to work from home. You get as much paid time off as you want. You have benefits, healthcare. You have a decent salary that allows you to do what you want, right? So you can, and so many of you are living at home, so you actually can go on vacation and go hang out with your friends and go turn up in the club and do all the things that a lot of people just weren't able to do in my generation, because we were actually paying for our own stuff, right? So I know that that's complicated, and why you're living at home because of the job market and all of that. That's another discussion. But what I'm saying to you is take advantage of that. But don't take advantage of people who give you a lot of space so that you can have the boundaries that you need, and you can have the life that you need and the fun that you want. So I say all of that to say, be mindful of what you elevate in your life as important, especially as it relates to your job. Because now this young woman, whether it's true or not, and if it's not true, it's a great example of what you should not do, is out of a job, perhaps doesn't have benefits. Maybe the work environment was toxic and she didn't really care and she was looking for a way out anyway, But ultimately, people have expectations. In the same way that you want us to learn how your generation moves or rocks or whatever verb you want to use, you need to understand how we move. And that's the generation that's typically in the leadership roles. And we actually have to engage with you because you're our children. So we are very familiar with who you are, but you also have to be familiar with who we are. And there are just basic workplace practices that you have to participate in if you want to have a successful time or tenure in your job, and if you want to remain in your job. So this is probably not the right audience for that, but I felt like it needed to be said just in case there are people who are graduating from college. That flexibility that your professors have with you, workplaces don't really have that. Your ability to kind of move the way that you want to move and cite this and that for why you need to not come in, and you need a mental health day and all of that. A lot of workplaces are adjusting to that, but many of them still are coming to it. So you do have to communicate and give people advance notice for everything, whether you're celebrating your birthday or whether you really do need a mental health day. So at any rate, that's it. Tune in next week for another episode of a Black Executives Perspective podcast. I'm Nsenga Burton. Have a wonderful day.
A Black Executive Perspective.